Hi, my name's John Paul. I'm AAA's car doctor and senior manager of traffic safety and public affairs. And if you've been paying attention to some of the news lately, electric vehicles are certainly on the rise. GM just announced recently a hybrid battery electric Corvette, which looks pretty phenomenal, as well as a full battery electric Corvette in the future. So electric cars are not just plain Jane little cars anymore. They're high performance sports cars. And one of the questions that always comes up is there going to be enough electricity? And here in the Northeast, it's a question that comes up pretty often. With us to try to take a little bit of mystery out of that is Jake Navarro. He is National Grid's Director of Clean Transportation. Jake, welcome to the AAA Car Chat here, I guess is a good way to call it.
Thank you for having me.
First off, let's get a little bit of detail about National Grid. You guys don't make electricity, right? You guys, what does National Grid do?
Yeah, so National Grid is an electricity and natural gas utility in the northeastern US. So we serve 3 states in the Northeast: New York, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. And the main thing that we do generate some small amounts of electricity in certain parts of our service territory. But the main thing that we do in our electric business is move electricity from one place to another. So all of the big transmission lines and towers, or what we call distribution electric lines and local utility poles, those are owned by National Grid or other utilities who do something like us. And the main thing that those assets do is get electricity from where it's generated to where people need to consume it.
And here in the Northeast, most of the electricity is made by natural gas.
Natural gas is the biggest source of electricity generation, but that electricity generation mix is constantly getting cleaner as more and more sources of renewable energy are added onto the grid.
So I guess, the question, right now, 2% of the cars on the road are electric. In California, that number is maybe 5 or 6%, but certainly those numbers are going to grow with the amount of car companies that are putting a lot of effort and billions of dollars into those electric vehicles. How is National Grid prepared to handle that sort of demand?
Yeah, I think first off, it's important to say we're actually trying to accelerate that transition. That's something that we really think is important for the communities we serve, the customers we serve. We want to make access to electric transportation available to all of our customers, whether that means a person who lives in a single family residence being able to afford an electric vehicle and afford to charge their EV, or a person who lives in a multi-unit dwelling or an apartment building having access to EV charging, or somebody who doesn't own a vehicle at all and maybe uses public transportation having access to clean public transportation. And so National Grid actually runs programs to help get more electric vehicle charging deployed and help get more, help make that EV transition more possible and more attainable for more of our customers. So we're actually doing things to actively accelerate that transition. We do support the states we serve and their really ambitious goals to get more EVs on the road. Just to give you a sense of the scale, in Massachusetts, the way that looks is a goal of 300,000 electric vehicles on the road by 2025. Today, it's between 50 and 60,000. So there's a long way to go. We get the question all the time of, can the electric grid serve those EVs when they come? And the short answer is yes. We do have the electric infrastructure to serve and fuel all of those electric vehicles that are coming in the next few years. When we do our forecasting, we don't anticipate impacts on what we call our bulk power system from the number of EVs we expect to see by 2025. If you go on the years beyond that, then we do start to see impacts that are more material to the grid, and we're starting to plan and build right now to be able to support that demand.
And the Ford Lightning pickup truck, the electric Ford that I think is actually starting production right now, it also has bi-directional capability where you can charge up your electric truck, but you can also use your truck to run your house. How does that impact the grid? Is that in a positive way that people can use their electric vehicle as a backup or to provide extra power to the grid if necessary? Will that help offset some of the demand?
There are a lot of positive potential applications to, what we call vehicle to home or vehicle to grid capabilities for cars. Most of the EV owners that we talk to today are still trying, they're still at the beginning stages of the transition, right? And so they're not necessarily thinking too much about discharging their vehicle's battery. They more want to figure out how they're going to charge it and do that in a reliable way. But we do see into the future potential applications for these vehicle to grid technologies. One of the biggest and sort of most interesting for us is actually with school buses. School buses are big vehicles that when they're electrified, they're going to have big batteries. And in the summertime, when the excess amount of renewable energy is the highest because of solar, most school buses are not actually being used, right? So you have this big bank of potential batteries that's going to be sitting out there in the summer and can be used to charge those batteries up when there's excess solar electricity on the system, and then discharge when there's more peak demand, which we do see in the summer because of especially because of air conditioning use.
So this is one of those things that potentially, I mean, we've all heard about out in the Midwest and California rolling brownouts. So this type of system could actually help prevent those types of problems, right?
It is possible that it could do that. I think for us doing things like evening out the peak, right? Matching the electricity that's being distributed or being created and generated to the electricity that's being used. Those things don't always match in a renewable energy world. That's something that's a really, really positive potential application of this kind of technology. I will say it's still very much in its early stages though, right? We do have one school bus that is doing something like this in Beverly, Massachusetts. That's something we're really proud of, being able to partner with the town of Beverly on a project like that. And it's going really well. But there are thousands and thousands more buses that need to electrify first. And then we need to figure out how we actually charge them and discharge them at the most optimal times.
Now, most people are going to charge up electric cars at home. I've heard about some areas where they have smart meters, which allow for different meter rates depending on when you charge and that type of thing. How is our area poised for that? Are customers or is National Grid kind of embracing that smart meter technology, or is that one of those steps that we need to look at to bring electrification kind of more mainstream and smoother at the same time?
So we are embracing smart meter technology. The industry acronym people use is AMI, but smart meters are not widely deployed in the Northeast today, but we do have significant proposals or approved plans underway to deploy those AMI smart chargers much more widely in both Massachusetts and New York. We are also, in the meantime, even before we get those smart meters deployed, looking at other opportunities to help reward people and incentivize the times of day people are charging their vehicles. So one of the things we have in Massachusetts today is an off-peak charging rebate program, and it works pretty simply. There's a certain set of hours of the day that are considered on-peak charging when electricity demand is typically the highest, and then there are certain hours that are considered off-peak charging, and we'll reward you if you charge your vehicle in those off-peak hours. And so that's a really sort of simple and basic way to try to create some of those incentives. In the future, when we have AMI and we have some more dynamic programs, we'll be able to do even more creative things.
So this sounds very similar to my old house that had two electric meters. One was for the electric water heater and the other meter was for the rest of the house. And that one was sort of on a timer that came on sort of in that off-peak time, and I got a reduced rate when my water heater was making hot water, right? So same idea.
It is the same idea. And we actually look for opportunities where there are certain cases where we may not have to actually deploy a second meter. So because the vehicles themselves through their telematics or the chargers through, if you have a networked level 2 charger, in your garage or at your home to charge your vehicle, we can actually get really good data from those kinds of devices. And in some situations may not need to actually put a second electric meter out there. We can rely on your main electric meter for what your entire consumption is, and then extract how much of that is going to charge your vehicle.
Will National Grid help me put a home charging station in?
So we would love to be able to do that. And in fact, we have a proposal right now with the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities that would allow us to incentivize and help support the cost of putting an electric vehicle charging station for residential customers. Today, we have programs that do that for commercial customers, right? If somebody wants to put out a public charging station or a charging station in a workplace for employees, we do have financial incentives and also can build infrastructure to help support those projects. Today, we can't do that for residential customers, but we've proposed to be able to do that. And we'd really like to be able to support customers in that way, because one of the things that we hear from customers when we talk to them is, especially given the older housing stock we have here in the Northeast, that can be, something that really delays somebody's ability or their decision to adopt an EV, because they just might not have the electric infrastructure today in their home to be able to put in a level 2 charger.
Well, for people who don't charge at home, I've seen some of these charging stations that are literally mounted on telephone poles. So I kind of envision at some point that you could be able to charge up a car just like you would pay at a parking meter, sort of thing. Is that the future as well? That just like people go to gas stations, they'll kind of pull up on the side of the road, plug into a level 2 or perhaps even level 3 charger, be able to charge up their car, park at the same time, go do what they need to do, and have a fully charged car. Is that one of the things that's in the plans?
It absolutely is. And, we really believe that a comprehensive solution is what's needed. As you said, John, 80% of the charging is going to happen at home, right? And we want to, that's one of the biggest advantages for many customers to upgrade from an internal combustion engine vehicle to an electric vehicle, is you don't have to replace that gas pump. Your gas pump actually moves into your garage because you're now plugging in when you get home, you're charging overnight, and it's a much more convenient solution. However, for those customers, those few times a year when they take a long trip that exceeds the capacity of their battery's range, or for customers who, for whatever reason, can't get access to electric vehicle charging at home, because they don't have off-street parking or what have you, we want electric vehicle access for those customers as well. And so that's why we're investing in the public charging network too. You mentioned the pole-mounted EV charger program. That's something we're really excited about. We're the first utility east of the Mississippi to deploy these chargers that are mounted high up on utility poles. One of the real advantages is the power is right there, right? So the infrastructure to connect that EV charger to our electric grid is much less expensive. The installation costs are much lower. And we've got a pilot program with the city of Melrose where we've deployed 15 of these charging stations. And we'd like to deploy more and more communities, but there's many more applications, right? Anywhere that you might go and park is a potential location where you could be fueling your vehicle. So public parking garages, retail locations, of course, highway rest stops for those longer trips. Those are all places that we think charging is needed, and the build out of the charging infrastructure across the country is going to be really, really important for this EV transition.
And you mentioned, electric school buses as an example, where they pretty much are only busy a couple hours a day, and the other times they're sort of parked, and they can be parked and recharging, and they can potentially be parked and recharging off of solar. Do you consider solar a competitor or a partner in energy?
Definitely not a competitor, right? Because we are not in the generation business. Solar is another source of electricity that we can deliver to our customers. And because we're also a clean energy transition company, we're a company that's trying to lead the way through this transition to clean energy in the coming decades. We think it's really, really important that those clean energy sources are on our network. It is also complex to deploy solar, right? Many of our much of our distribution network, our electric distribution network, was not designed to have electricity flowing in multiple directions, right? It was designed to have the electricity go in one direction. And so in order to preserve the resiliency of that network, sometimes it gets a little bit complicated when we're trying to connect those solar projects. But in general, it's certainly not a competitor of ours. And we think as we are able to deploy more technologies like energy storage, including the energy storage that's in vehicles, we think there are applications and opportunities for more solar to get deployed.
So electricity is made from natural gas. It's made from potentially from solar. Hydro is a big player. At some point, as electric cars become that much more popular, electric moving vans, electric school buses, electric postal vehicles, maybe. I guess back to the bottom line again, how are you set up and what's the future like? Is underground utilities going to make a difference? Is that more of a problem as you're upgrading, or is that a benefit? Are you ready for all of this? And you said you're working on this, but are you ready for this? Is it if 50% of the population drives electric cars in 15 years, is National Grid ready and they're going to be able to provide the electricity?
So we are ready, and we're excited to lead the way to this transition. I would also say it's a partnership, right? That we are one player. We think we have a really important role to play, but there are many different organizations and customer groups involved in this transition. And so we look at ourselves as partners with the states we serve, the communities we serve, the companies that are making the electric vehicles and the electric vehicle chargers, and then of course our customers, to make this transition happen. The things that we'll start to see as this transition gets from the nascent stages where it is today, with just a couple % of the vehicles on the road being EVs, to a much higher level of adoption in the future, are places where the demands on our system get much higher in very specific areas. Think about highway rest stops where you'll need really significant high-speed charging deployed to support those EVs. Or as fleets start to electrify, fleet operators, especially medium and heavy duty vehicles, that'll have a much larger energy need because they'll need the energy to be coming quickly, and the batteries will be much, much larger. We may start to see areas where a much more significant investment in our infrastructure is needed. And so we're starting to work with the companies and organizations today to start to plan for that transition. It does take a long time to build electric infrastructure. And so we're trying to start now to make sure that we're the way in which we're serving EVs in the early stages today continues to be the way we're serving them in the future, and even gets better.
Well, I think all of this, looks very positively in the future. I like to think that today is really the golden era of the automobile. People thought it was the early 1900s where you could buy a car that was gasoline or diesel or electric or steam powered or whatever. Today, it's almost the same thing. You buy a car that runs on gasoline, runs on diesel, runs on, diesel, battery electric, or pure battery. So people are having a lot of choices, but knowing that the infrastructure is in place and the capabilities there, so people are not going to have to worry about running out of electricity and not having enough electricity there, I think should help people feel a little bit better about their potential electric vehicle purchase. So if people want to find out more information about National Grid or National Grid electric programs, is there a website they can go to where they can find out more information?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have an EV specific page in our website. People can visit ngrid.com/EV hub. It's ngrid.com/EV hub. And they'll learn more information about the programs we have available, and also some of the offerings that states and other governments have available for our customers.
Jake, I want to thank you for taking a little time out of your day and joining us on this AAA car conversation.
Thank you for having me.